After this president, as they went after Richard Nixon, this political press in Washington, D.C. is the committee to re-elect the president.
We got to go, guys. We're way behind. We got to take a break.
Denying security is not a criminal act.
Thank you both.
Yikes. Idiocy at its best there. Defend the indefensible because I am a progressive weenie. So let's talk about this. You know, liberals, when 9/11 happened in Bush 2001, of course, he had been in office just a little bit. It's a well-known fact that it took over 10 years of planning to plan the 9/11-2001 attacks, but the liberals were quick to say it happened on Bush's watch. 3 times. Never mind that 3 times before that, Clinton could have hit bin Laden. Osama bin Laden is killed. Barack Obama conveniently does not mention that, and actually denies, even though Panetta did say that the reason and the way they found Osama bin Laden is because of the interrogation techniques that the wackos on the left call torture, the same techniques that we put our special forces through and have for years. Ollie North, for example, talks about having gone through waterboarding. If you've ever seen the video of the radical Islamists beheading Americans, it really is a joke to compare the two. But we got bin Laden because of Bush, and Obama refuses to admit that. He also refuses to call things terrorism. He also redacted all the language within any of the government documentation as far as, I guess you would say, the marching orders for FBI, CIA, etc., etc., not calling things terrorism, not speaking of jihad, not mentioning radical Islamists. And then we have this whole WMD thing. Leslie Marshall is a complete fool and completely disingenuous when she speaks of the WMDs and being lied to. President Bush was listening to the intelligence that he was given, as well as the intelligence of, I believe it was, 7 of our closest allies also said the same thing. It's a fact that missiles containing sarin gas were found. It's a fact that he gassed, Saddam Hussein gassed his own people, that he killed approximately 1.3 million people. And those people would still be dying. It's a fact that there were thousands and thousands of chemical suits found. And you don't need chemical suits, and trust me, you don't want to wear one unless you have a reason to wear one. By our troops as they entered into Iraq and fought that war. And there's also some reports of mustard gas and stuff being dumped into the river in Baghdad, and those quickly kind of evaporated in the media. But anyway, when it comes down to it, you know, this argument of the left, they always go back to George Bush. And I would like to point out that it seems to take it seems to be the Republicans who come in, the conservatives who come in and clean up the messes of the weak apologist Democrats that were before them, of the Democrats who couldn't pull the trigger before them, whether it's Clinton and Osama bin Laden, and the opportunities he had, particularly the opportunity in the Sudan, in which he was too much of a coward to take, or if it was probably one of the most incompetent presidents, Jimmy Carter, and the Iran issue and the hostages. You know, you look back and you think at least in modern history, what's the result of treating the 93 World Trade Center bombing as a criminal issue? Well, we saw that. The buildings came tumbling down, in the words of the rather liberal John Mellencamp. The walls came tumbling down and on September 11, 2001. Yes, it occurred when Bush was president, but, idiots, it took over 10 years of planning and was a direct result of our not understanding that we were already at war and that war was declared in 1993. So here we are today, and you look at, and I guess here's how I'm going to tie these things in. Whether it's Benghazi or it's Boston, we have an ideologue as president who refuses to admit the truth. And he refuses to admit the truth because he is on a mission, as I stated earlier, to minimize or reduce the role of the United States. He is a socialist. He wants to not only redistribute the wealth in this country, but he wants to redistribute the wealth of this country. And if you don't believe me, look at what's going on with the UN and learn about Agenda 21. Anyway, you look at the impact specifically that his approach to terrorism has had on this country. There is blood on the hands of this president, of this Secretary of State, of the UN ambassador, of Jay Carney, the Goebbels of the Obama administration, the propagandist himself. Because we call things like Fort Hood workplace violence, because we worry more about protecting Islam than we re-establish and reinforce our Judeo-Christian values and stand up for what this country is and has been, we end up with things like Boston. We end up weakened. We end up at risk because of the economic policies of this president. We end up even more at risk. The future of your children and my children doesn't look so good right now unless we get this under control.
No elitist drivel, no media spin. Logic over emotion, fact over fiction. The home of independent conservative thought. The Conservative Voice with your host, Jeff Wagner, only on the Conservative Radio Network.
It's no longer a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy fact. The TSA is out on the streets. The FBI is spying on you. And you are in the crosshairs of the New World Order. Come listen to The Views Expressed with your host, Reverend Wayne S. Pierce, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on Spreaker.com.
In this time of political power grabs, endless bureaucracy, the creation of czars, the trampling of your constitutional rights, turn to the Ronald Boyd Show for clear, intelligent, and concise conservative opinion. Only on Spreaker.com. Jeff Wagner back with you on the Conservative Voice, the Conservative Radio Network. Logic over emotion, fact over fiction, the home of independent conservative thought, and one tired patriot. I have pages of stuff that that I've gone through on this show, and I have this in this this notebook. And whether it's economic issues, homeland security, immigration, terrorism, it's a rather depressing collection of notes. I talked a little bit about the debate and Barack Obama's approach to covering up Benghazi at that time. And I think, again, as I stated, that that's all you really need to know to understand what this man is made out of. I think also that there are some other voices out there that haven't been heard yet, and that will come forward. I know that there are some folks within the CIA who are talking about coming forward now. And hopefully they do. And hopefully the mainstream media actually gets off its tuchus and decides to actually participate in some real journalism. I want to just take a little bit of time here to talk about, or to play the one person who was a whistleblower who came out earlier, and this is, I guess, the second part of this, but prior to the hearings. And I think it does a good job of talking about what we're really dealing with, and may shed some light on what more is to come.
A blockbuster tonight on Benghazi. A claim U.S. forces could have intervened in the terror attack in time, and that the Obama administration is trying to intimidate potential whistleblowers into silence. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Brett Baer. Two major stories tonight on the Benghazi terror attack and what some lawmakers charge is a vast and growing cover-up concerning the assault that left 4 Americans dead, including the U.S. ambassador, on 9/11. We still don't know how many people were injured that night. The administration insists those events have been investigated enough and that it's time to move on. We have Fox team coverage tonight with 2 explosive stories. Adam Housley in Los Angeles talks exclusively to a special operator who says military help was available, despite what the administration has said. But we begin with accusations that the president's people are making threats against Benghazi witnesses. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen reports from the State Department on an incredibly serious charge before Congress starts a new round of hearings. Good evening, James.
Brett, good evening. Secretary of State Kerry told House lawmakers earlier this month he doesn't want to spend the next year coming to Capitol Hill to talk about Benghazi, but new charges from within his own department could make that a reality. Fox News has learned that at least 3 career State Department employees and at least 1 more at the Central Intelligence Agency have retained lawyers or are in the process of doing so in order that they can provide sensitive information to Congress about Benghazi. The 4 consider themselves whistleblowers and want their counsel to receive the security clearances that would enable them to review classified documents. But the lawyer representing one of the employees at State told us the department is not providing a process for that, and